Good morning, folks. Welcome to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Shroyer, your host, and we're in luck because we're at the Weather Data Library in Mesonet in the Department of Agronomy in Throckmorton Hall. We're going to be meeting with the individuals involved with collecting the data and how all this information benefits you. We've got to take a break, so we'll see you after these words from our sponsor. Thank you.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Shroyer, your host, and with us we have Mary Knapp, our assistant state climatologist, and we're going to be talking about the Weather Data Library that's housed in the Department of Agronomy here at K-State, and the Mesonet and various things in the other segments. But Mary, kind of take us off on what the Weather Data Library does and what we're all about.
Okay, basically give you a very short history. Back in the 70s, the National Weather Service decided that climate wasn't an important part of their mission, and they eliminated the State Climate Office. At the time, Dr. Dean Bark, who was a professor of physics here at Kansas State University, said, wait a minute, this is vitally important to agriculture and to the citizens of Kansas. So he worked with the university to maintain that program. It's now migrated through various iterations, and we are housed in the Department of Agronomy. We have an expanded office now, so we have a full-time tenure-track faculty, Dr. Jamal Lin, who is the state climatologist. His focus is on research. He has 2 graduate students working with him, and the research is geared towards climate and climate impacts on various phases of Kansas life. And so that's
not just agriculture. We're talking about everybody.
But everybody, water use, urban environments, because weather does impact everybody. My role is more in the outreach area, so I will be talking to producers. I do presentations to STEM classes, so a wide variety of things. I also help prepare standard products that go out, so we do a weekly update to the drought monitor. We also do weekly drought updates, and yes, there is still drought in Kansas, and a number of other things. And then again, we serve as a source of information for producers or for citizens who might need to know more about the weather. We do a lot with the Mesonet data, and you'll be talking to Chip Redman and the various other members of the Mesonet group, the team, later in the segment. But we also work with the National Weather Service, and we archive data from the Co-op Observing Network. We are a co-op observing site here in Manhattan, and that is our official Manhattan reporting station. Our data goes back to 1856, which actually predates the college. So we do have a very long history of accumulating weather information and making it available. And probably our third outreach area is with COCORAS. COCORAS stands for Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. Rainfall is one of the most variable measurements that can be collected if you think of it as weather, and it's very expensive to use an automated observation technique for it. There's a lot of problems with keeping the gauges clean and bugs and everything like that, and the instrumentation itself is expensive. So with the COCORAS network, we use a standard 8-inch plastic gauge that's used with the National Weather Service Storm Spotter network, so it's comparable from site to site. Volunteers get a gauge, deploy it, and report daily with the rainfall.
So you're basically citizen scientists, so to speak, or at least recorders.
Now the COCORAS program is across the country and has actually gone international. So we have Canadian groups, and the Bahamas have recently joined.
Mary, thanks for giving us that overview. I appreciate that. Folks, we have to take a break right now, so we'll see you in a minute after these words from our sponsors.
Welcome to Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in Oakley, Kansas on I-70 at exit 76. I-70, after all, is America's Main Street, and we're right here on Main Street for you. Now that I'm an Oakley resident, I still come in almost every day, and I sit and listen to the conversations of the people around me. You know, the guys who are talking about the big elk they just bagged, or the folks who are taking their kid to college for the first time. People just traveling up and down the highway. Real people, just like you and me. And they find just what I find here, real people to serve them. There's history, there's scenery. We hope you'll stop and see us soon. Welcome to Oakley.
That's My Farm. It's brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Shroyer, and with us in this segment we have Chip Redman, who is the manager of the Mesonet. And so Chip, tell us a little bit about the Mesonet. We got a chart back here, and tell us what it is and what it does, and take off.
Okay, yeah, we have 56 stations spread out throughout the state. About half of them are towers, which are 30-foot towers, and the other half are tripods, and they're about 3 meters tall. The network originated in 1985, and it started at research and extension sites, and from there it's slowly grown over time, especially in the 2010s.
Because I remember when there was 33 for a long time. We're in that 30 ballpark for a long, long time, so we're up to 56 now.
Yeah, we're up to 56 now. We're actively growing. We try to gain 1 or 2 stations a year, just as long as we can gain additional funding to maintain them.
Sure.
And we're trying to fill in a lot of the gaps. So we aim to put stations in where there are no National Weather Service stations, where there are no other KDOT stations or anything like that. So we try to hit the areas that are not well represented across the state. And so our main use of our network, since we originated the research and extension stations, or at farms, the main use is agriculture.
Right.
So that's a fundamental use, and that's what we try to drive for.
Well, how many, you have 56, but you add a couple every year. What's the goal? Is the one to have one at least in every county?
Yeah, long-term goal will be 105 stations, one in every county. With that, you know, that takes a lot of money and a lot of funding.
Well, maintenance is going to take
a lot of manpower, a ton of manpower. We visit every station at least 2 times a year. We do spring maintenance, fall maintenance, and then we do emergency maintenance as well. So as soon as we can get a notification within an hour of either a variable out of like temperature, too high, too warm, or the station's
so you
not
already
recording.
know that something's wrong. It flags it. It's flagged,
Yeah,
and you can.
Correct.
You can see 150 degrees. You know that in Saline County that it's hot, but it's not quite that hot.
No. So we can do emergency maintenance to be out there as soon as possible to replace that.
Okay, so let's take it to the next step. You collect all this data, 24 hours a day on 56 stations. Now what?
Well, we collect all that data. That includes temperature, that includes winds at 6 foot and 30 foot, and that includes soil temperature, precipitation,
What about
solar
soil temperature?
radiation.
Let's go soil temperature. What depths?
We record depths at 2 inch and 4 inch, and then we have our soil moisture sensors, which are at the towers, also record at different depths.
Okay. What's the usual? 6, 12, 18 inches, or?
20, 40, and 60 centimeters is what we're doing right now.
Okay.
And we're going to be changing that in the next year. We anticipate overhauling all our soil moisture sensors.
Okay.
So with that, all that data comes in. We have basically what we call sanity checks, just to check it if it's within the realm of the average or the expected temperatures. And then we have a flag notification that pops up that we're able to access, whether it's an error, a warning, or a suspect, depending on how flagrant it is.
So how often is this data collected or sent back to headquarters?
Yeah, we collect the data every 3 minutes. We use cellular communications, so that we get it instantaneous, and then immediately that data is pulled into our database and can be displayed through multiple avenues.
Chip, we got to take a break now. Appreciate it. I know there's lots more you could talk on it, but we have to take a break. Folks, stay with us. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsor.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses for with the fertilizer dollars that they do and what we can do to make those things work better for that grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well on their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we're glad to answer and work with you.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Shroyer, and in this segment we have Randy Mai, a native of Greeley County, Kansas, and Randy is the field technologist or field tech for the Weather Data Library, and we're kind of in your little cubby hole here, Randy. With all that equipment that we have at those 56 sites, I imagine things go awry from time to time and have to be checked, and quality assurance and that sort of thing. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Currently we're staying in the recertification laboratory, and in this laboratory what we try and do is provide quality assurance for the data that we do produce with our sensors that we put in the field. We test the sensors when they're new, and we try and repeat that test at 1-year intervals. We do it earlier if need be.
If things go wrong.
That is correct, if we suspect the data. Now what this really does for us is it just gives us a sanity check to where we can bring sensors back in and also send them off for recalibration if we think we need to. That allows us to basically maintain a level of quality assurance of our data that we're producing.
Yeah, if you have bad data or bad sensors out there, bad data in, bad data out, so to speak.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this what you have right there. Then you have a good.
The first apparatus that we're looking at right here, or is positioned here, is for measuring solar radiation. We use what's called a pyranometer, which most people have them in their new vehicles, and that sensor is used to turn on their lights as the sun goes down, so it senses solar radiation.
Right, okay. So this is basically the same thing.
Right. So we take a brand new sensor, one that we've deemed good by certain acceptance criteria, and then measure all other sensors against that, and it has to fall within a % value of what we consider good.
A standard, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good deal. And so what is this next machine we have here behind us?
Right behind you, that is actually for testing temperature and relative humidity sensor, which they're actually a sensor that's blended together. So we are able to close the hood on this and run it across a gradient of temperatures, check it at different points at that temperature gradient, and then also the little test chamber that's directly behind you, we check at different humidities, and we use salts inside there because particular salts are proven. There's been good research done on it that tells how much water it will give up and maintain. So then we can establish a known humidity.
Relative humidity.
Yes.
A standard.
Yeah, it's just a sanity check for us, so we can send it in to those who do NIST standard checks. We don't do that here, but it allows us to make sure we can send that in and check things out.
It was mentioned earlier that you go to the field and make checks there. What are some other things that you're looking for on site?
To get to those, first of all, these are the only checks that we do inside in-house.
Right.
The rest of the checks that we do through a fall and a spring maintenance. And those are, for example, we do a rain gauge calibration test, and we make sure that that is actually working and monitoring whenever we do get rainfall. And we also go through a cleaning process, which is to help maintain the accuracy of them. And you take for where I come from, Western Kansas, where there's quite a bit of dust blowing, we need to clean them pretty often. So.
And you're right, it does get a little windy out there, doesn't it? Folks, we have to take a break right now. Stay with us. We'll be back after these words from our sponsor. See you in a minute.
Tarwater Farm and Home has been family owned and operated since its beginning in 1978. What you need for farm and agriculture, lawn and garden, clothing and footwear, and so much more. You'll be surprised at what you'll find in this huge store. They have what you need and lots of it. So come take a look. You'll discover that customer service is first and foremost. Always has been with the Tarwaters. Tarwater Farm and Home, 4107 North Topeka Boulevard.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
My name's Karen Cope and I have multiple sclerosis. When you have MS, on the outside you look great, but you know what's really going on in the inside is chronic body pain, chronic fatigue. And there's lots of days that I'd wake up and say, oh, please God, help me get through this day. You know, after stem cells, Chloe, my youngest daughter, she was asked by my father-in-law, how's your mom doing? And Chloe said, Grandpa, I've never had a mom like this before, because she was 8 when I was diagnosed, and she really had no other memory of me but being sick. It's really the simple things that we do as a family, like play cards, and to be able to win at cards. You know, they all laugh because I used to repeat myself and say, what hand are we on? You know, where are we at? And it's just been really a true blessing from God, and we're really thankful.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Shroyer, and with us we have Randy Mai, the field technologist, or the field tech for the Weather Data Library and Mesonet group here. So, Randy, tell us what we have behind us here.
Directly behind us we have a 10-foot tripod and a 30-foot tower, which is representative of all the stations that we have across the state of Kansas.
This is one of the 56?
This is one of the 56, yes,
okay.
Sir.
So kind of take us through what's down there.
Well, the 30-foot tower has basically the thing that's the difference between the 10-foot tower. It has one additional wind vane on it, or anemometer. So that's the largest difference. Okay. We're moving from the 10-foot to the 30-foot. We're trying to upgrade all those 10-foot tower or
across
tripods.
the state.
Across the state, yes, sir.
So what does a little puppy like that cost, ballpark,
to
put in?
Outfitted the way it is roughly $20,000.
And then you have upkeep, and that can be probably 10%.
Easily, yeah.
And that's each year.
Yeah, and that's assuming that nothing really goes wrong with it, like lightning strike or fire or something of that nature.
You've had both of those this year.
Unfortunately, we have.
Okay, so what's on the tripod?
On the tripod, you have a 8-foot anemometer, which measures the wind speed and the wind direction. Also have solar radiation, barometric pressure, temperature, relative humidity. On the 10-foot tripod, we do have a rain gauge, a tipping bucket rain gauge, which measures just the moisture, but it's not heated. On the 30-foot tower, we have a heated rain gauge, so if it gathers any type of snow, it has a proximity switch in it, which will go ahead and kick on a heater, melt the snow, and measure the amount of moisture.
So you don't lose that.
That's correct.
Okay. Randy, thanks for taking time.
You're quite welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Folks, we'll be right back after these words from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Randy.
And I'm Paul from PFI.
We would like to personally invite you to stop by PFI, home of Boot Daddies.
PFI is America's Western store, covering over 50,000 square feet.
Over 25,000 boots.
Visit Saddle City with the largest selection of saddles and tack anywhere.
A huge selection of hats at Big Spur Hat Company in PFI Town.
And choose from the best brands of clothing and accessories for the entire family.
PFI, located on Highway 65 at the Battlefield exit in Springfield. And I'm not kidding.
As fourth-generation farmers themselves, Heinen Brothers Ag Service understands the risk and rewards of farming. So when it comes to quality aerial and ground application, fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia, call Heinen Brothers Ag today, 800-760-4964.
Welcome to our Bar B, 8,000 plus square feet Western store with something for everyone in the family. We have boots, belts, hats, jeans, anything you could want to outfit you and your horse. Come visit our line of saddles. We have 400 plus new and used saddles in stock. We offer tack, grooming supplies, headstalls, breast collars, you name it, we've got it for you and your horse. That's our Bar B, 1 mile east of Highway 4 on Northeast 39th. Our Bar B, where Western is a way of life.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Shroyer, and in this last segment we have Dan Regier from Harvey County, and he is the web and database manager for the Weather Data Library at K-State. So Dan, that's a big title. I know you've got lots of responsibilities, so kind of tell us how do you get the data? I mean, we've seen the stations at the various locations, and so how do you get it, what do you do with it, and who uses it?
Right, so the stations collect the data, obviously. That gets transmitted wirelessly via cell phone modems to our weather data call-up machine. That machine compiles all of the data that we have into files that I then read into the database.
Okay.
From that database, I'm then tasked with running quality control on these data. That's a big project. At this point, it's pretty rudimentary. There are many, many things you can do just to make sure that the data that's coming in is good. You can verify that you don't have a sensor that's going bad, or there's a fire that's run over the tower or something.
So like we had this past year down in South Central Kansas.
We had a lightning strike recently also. Yeah, so you want to make sure that the data coming in is reliable data, because those who are using it for research need to know that they're looking at what was actually happening with the weather, not something that a sensor just made up.
Right, right. Okay, so what do you do with it then? You've got it coming in, so what do you do with it?
Then we have our data. We think it's good. We've run our tests on it. So then the question is, first of all, how do you protect it to make sure that it's available for use, a long time to come? And then secondly, how do you get it to the people who want to use it and need to use it? So a lot of my job in the past 6 months has been just shoring up our database structure and our backup system so that we can keep this data safe. Going forward is this open-ended project of how do we disseminate the data, who wants to use it, and how do they want to use it. So for the Kansas Mesonet homepage, this is what you're going to see when you first click on it. We have all of our stations are represented on here. You can click on various stations. This is pretty dramatic right now. We're at a time when a cold front is coming through. It's 42 degrees up in northwestern Kansas, 77 southeast Kansas. So pretty fun to watch. We can also look at the 24-hour precipitation and the current wind speeds. One of the new tools that we've introduced in this past fall is the freeze monitor. This is a page that gives us all the 24-hour low temperature for each of our stations. It also tells us how many
hours below freezing.
Exactly, and then how many hours below 24 degrees, which is
really cold.
Right, and important for wheat production is my understanding. Right. Along with that, we have all the data down here. Let me go back to we have all the data down here, which are then sortable. So if you want to know which station had the lowest temperature in the last 24 hours, you can click on that. And you can see, well, it is Cheyenne up there in northwest Kansas, which is
dropping down
cool
the
and
freezing,
getting cooler. Right. Also, on our Mesonet page, we have some agricultural tools. We have growing degrees, which allow you to look at the growing degrees for corn and sorghum.
At the various locations.
We also have the ability to pull historical weather. So if you want to know what the temperatures look like for the last week in Manhattan, or what they look like this week 2 years ago in comparison, we can pull that data, and you have all of this, and you can pull that into your Excel spreadsheet if you're a researcher, or jot it down in your diary if you're just interested in what the daily temperature was.
Dan, I really appreciate this. You've really done a good job. You've really updated here as of late, haven't you? Thanks for being with us on this episode of That's My Farm. And don't forget, next week about this same time, will be another episode of That's My Farm.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. To see this show and past episodes of Ag AM in Kansas, go online to agamInKansas.com.